to the country. I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches.
Welcome back. It's Medicinal, episode number 5. How are you, Harvey?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We've been having a little chat, and today we're going to do Ask It's Medicinal that we've mentioned on Twitter.
Absolutely, yeah. I would like to point out that this isn't medical advice. You know, we might be giving some advice out today that's not appropriate or accurate or, you know, based on famous film franchises. Don't sue us because we're not liable for any of this. This is just our own monotonous rambling.
Exactly. Please don't sue us. It's not advice. It's just opinion.
It's not actually medicinal. It's just a podcast.
Exactly. So take it as. Okay, we've had. I think about 10. We've got a lot of questions and comments, and some of them we can maybe talk about today. Some of them are going to take up maybe 10 seconds of time, and some of them are going to take maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
There are some good sandwiches worth of questions here that are quite big, so we'll just see what we can get through.
Okay, I think we can begin. Let's begin at the beginning. One of the first ones we had was Beth, lovely Beth, who I met at talking about diabetes with her son. Beth is at Dalbal on Twitter. She said, in terms of your diabetes, what is your biggest fear? How does that impact on your attitude and behavior towards diabetes? So I think she's asking what's your biggest fear about diabetes, about type 1, I guess, for both of us. How about you, Harvey? What's your fears?
I don't know. I don't think, because when she asked this question, I was like, that is a really good question, but I don't really know how to answer it. Mostly because I'm not really sure what I'm afraid of in terms of diabetes. I'm pretty much scared of all of it, but I think the biggest fear that I've got is losing complete control of like my blood sugars and things like that. Like I've said before in a couple of the podcasts, like my body's still got a certain amount of autonomy when it comes to blood sugars and things like that. So if I know that I'm going high, even if I don't do like a correction or anything like that, my blood sugar eventually itself will drop itself down. I'm really scared of the point that when I get to not having that on like within my life, because I feel like when that does happen, I'm going to really struggle to adjust to that. Okay. That's my biggest fear, and fair enough, it's not a big thing for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have that control already anyway. But it's the thing that I worry about most, because I don't always do my background insulin. I don't always check my blood. I don't, I'm very, take it as it is on the day and see how I feel kind of thing. And it worries me a lot in terms of like my mental health, how I will deal with that later on. Okay. So, yeah, that. But what about you?
Similar thing. Do you have a fear? Let me just ask you another question about it. Do you fear complications? Do you fear like the long-term effects of diabetes? Is it just too new to you at the moment, or?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is too new to me. It's not some. I'm one of those people. I don't take things seriously until they're there. Like I don't. I'm very much a as you are kind of person, so I don't really think too much about that sort of stuff. I do. The thing that scares me most about like the complications and stuff like that would probably be like going blind. That would be like my greatest worry, because when I go blind, it's going to be having to learn how to do everything completely new. I say when, if it's not, it's not a when. I just, I meant like, should it happen? It's something that really, really terrifies me, because I don't, you think about the amount that you actually look at stuff and take things in. Even just watching TV is going to be a brand new experience, and I'm not going to be able to see the things that I was able to see before. So it's that kind of thing scares me.
So visual impairment. I mean, I think that's one of the ones towards the top of the list for most people. When they think about complications, they think, okay, maybe I need an amputation or something, but I could cope. You see people with, artificial limbs and they're coping and it's fine. But how do you cope if you lose your sight? And because I've had visual impairment I still have visual impairment because of diabetes.
Yeah.
And that's something we can talk about further down the line. In terms of my biggest fear, same thing. I've had a taste, and it fucking sucks, to be honest with you. It's shitty. So I know what it's like, and it isn't something that I wish upon anybody, but also it's given me a perspective that I should manage myself as effectively, as good as I can. I should manage my diabetes as good as I can, because if I do, I feel it's going to minimize my chances of further complications, new complications, or going back to the old eye complications that I had 9 years ago now. So my biggest fear is, I suppose, additional complications, new complications, whether that be, we all know what they are. It's eye things, it's kidney things, it's amputation things, all of those things. It's, okay, shit, my leg hurts today. Am I going to lose my leg? You get those little things in the back of your mind, but then you quickly calm down and think, no, my leg hurts today because I'm old. I walked out yesterday.
I can't relate.
Slaps on my leg. So it's those things do occur and pop up in your mind. My biggest fear would be new complications or additional complications to my visual impairment. Yeah. There's that question. Have you got one?
Yes, I do. Simi asked, so it's at FXMMYK_, because she's different. She asked, how do you manage drinking when you don't feel like eating? Do you eat a certain amount of carbs while drinking to prevent your blood sugars from going too high? So obviously it's about, my favourite topic about alcohol. Obviously, and it's about like your carb restriction, would you say, of an evening. If you are going out drinking, do you make sure that you have a certain amount of carbs? You don't have too many carbs, but would you still go out drinking if you say don't feel like eating? So if you had like a big lunch and then don't want to have something before you go drinking?
Yeah, good question. God, we both love booze, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe that's why she asked, you think?
I think she just thought, drunks, ask them.
Ask them about booze, they'll know. I don't tend to do an awful lot in terms of what I eat if I'm going out and there's going to be a lot of booze involved. I may just check my blood glucose more to begin with. I don't want to be going out with super high blood sugars or many hypos before going out. Alcohol tends to spike me. Beer spikes me. Pints of Guinness, pints of Stella, they will push me up. There's a lot of carbs in those pints, I think. Other booze, not so much. Wine not so much. So it kind of depends what I feel I'm going to be doing. If I feel I'm going to go out with my best mate and we're going to have 6 pints of Stella, I know that's going to spike me. But I also know my blood sugar is going to fall out of its arse when I get home. Yeah. So I'm going to need to do something to maintain some stability, even if I'm a little bit high. So I might eat something small. If I don't feel like eating a lot of food beforehand or whilst I'm out, I might just force myself to have, I don't know, sandwich, something small. It's just going to maintain stability, just going to burn away overnight or into the evening, so my blood sugars don't plummet and send me hypo. But while I'm out, again, I use my technology, my CGM, to check my blood sugar constantly, and I will make tiny adjustments, and I will bolus the beer, but I don't usually bolus for much else unless it's a cocktail full of sugar. What do you do?
So for me, it is a little bit different. Like I say, it's not one size fits all for this sort of stuff either. But for me, you tend to have same sort of principle as, say, like your common recreational drugs. You have uppers, mids, and downers. And your uppers, stuff that shoots my blood sugar up, is things like beer. So anything with like a wheat sort of content, because of the carbohydrates in it, it tends to jump it up massively if I'm out drinking and things like that. So I won't really feel I need to do anything with food. So if you are going out and you don't want to eat, I recommend beer. But you will just need to keep an eye on it later on, because every single form of alcohol drops your blood sugar later on. You have like your mids. So for me, that's like fruity stuff. So wines, to a lesser extent things like ciders, because they're so sugary. It's more like the uppers. They're more like uppers. So like wines and things like that, they will not really affect my blood sugar. I can have like a bottle or two of wine and be like a fine blood sugar when I start, and then a fine blood sugar when I finish. But when I wake up in the morning, I will be like 2.9, because it's dropped it later on. So it's one of those things. And then I've got like the downers, the ones that drop me quite a lot, which tends to be just spirits, because there's nothing in there to pump up my blood sugars. So I would mix those with something like a regular Coke or something like that. If I'm having those with like a diet drink, I will have every once in a while just have like a cocktail that's got like orange juice in it or something like that. So you don't need to eat while you're drinking. It's just more about when you get home, take care of yourself. So maybe have yourself like a pre-made sandwich if you're that sloshed you're not going to be able to make a sandwich. Or buy yourself like a pizza and have half of it. It's about making sure that you're just looking after yourself before you go to bed more than anything, because the rest of the night I think is manageable. You are literally right there in a service environment, so if you think my blood sugar's dropping, you can be like, well, I'll just get a vodka and orange, that's fine. And if you think like your blood sugar's really high, switch to spirits. And I'm not saying that mixing drinks is really good for you, because clearly it's not. But I'm from the ilk that can really handle our drinks in terms of mixing and things like that. Not so much anymore, but I did used to know what I could mix and couldn't mix, and what I could drink a lot of and couldn't drink a lot of. But that was well before diagnosis, so that was, it was a bit of a different thing. But in terms of like playing a little bit of volleyball with your blood sugars, it is just about managing a little bit. If you know that you're going to be going out drinking, like I've said before, with a specific type of people, and you're only going to be drinking, say, spirits and shots and things like that, make sure that you have some food first, regardless of whether or not you feel like eating. Just have something small. You can have like a few crackers that'll just like bump you up that little bit, and you don't have to worry about it until you're getting food later.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I work it. Even if I don't feel like food, you just force something in, something tiny with carbs, and just keeps you stable.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your most hyper? How can I word this? What's your most hyperglycemic alcohol? For me, it's Bailey's.
No, Bailey's doesn't really affect me. But I can like down like a full bottle of like full fat milk, and it doesn't really seem to affect my blood sugar that much. So I don't think like the milk sort of stuff really affects me. It is beers, stuff like Stella, and things like that are really quite heavy sort of beers like that. Because I don't drink things like Guinness. I don't like stuff like that. But like the heavier sort of tasting beers like Stella and stuff like that tend to bump me right up. I won't drink ciders, because they jump me up really quickly and really high, and then I crash really fast as well, and I really don't like that. I've only ever had ciders twice since being diagnosed, and it's just not going to happen again. I really don't like that.
Yeah, I noticed that with cider. I'm not a cider fan. I like pear cider, but not apple cider.
No, it all tastes a bit like piss anyway, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I wouldn't know. I believe you, but I wouldn't know.
I'm not saying I would know either. Wow.
Let's move on. This is becoming adult. You asked the last question, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Lucy M. Lucy M is at smart but sweet, just like me.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, the question is, she's asking about sick days. It's a good question. She had a blocked pump and then ketones and had to take some time off work. And she asked, do you find attitudes towards you are understanding, or have you encountered or sensed people, and particularly on your side, if you've had to take a sick day because of diabetes? Has that happened to you?
No, I can't really relate to sick days. The last time I took sick days was my diagnosis. I took a month off work. That is the only time that I've ever been sick like that with diabetes anyway. Like, I'm quite fortunate. I've never been in that position so far. However, I do think that, say, like, if you're hypo or hyper, sometimes people can have a bit of an attitude with you about it while you're at work. So, you know, maybe not like you're really ill, but I can say, like, an hour before it is that I'm supposed to go on a break or something like that, I'm like, right, I need to go on a break now because I'm not feeling great. I know that something's up, and people are like, oh yeah, you do look a bit shitty, and you can get like funny stares and stuff. The job that I had before my current job, I actually left there from the way that they were treating me. It wasn't a very nice environment as it was anyway. But the managers were saying things like, well, to other people, not to me, well, I know diabetics and I know what it is that you can and can't handle and stuff like that. And it's just so reductive and not conducive to a good working environment. If you want to keep people in your workplace, and if you think that they're valuable, don't treat them like shit, regardless of whether or not they take a sick day or if they just don't feel great, especially with a pre-existing condition. It's not conductive to your atmosphere. It makes people feel singled out. You might as well be spitting in their face or, you know, being racist towards somebody. It's not a conductive environment in any stretch of the world. So, you know, just don't do it. Don't be a shitty human being. But what about you? Have you ever had to take a sick day from work? Have you ever worked?
Have I ever worked? No. I work for myself. People might not know. I work for myself. I'm self-employed. I work at home. I've done that since I was discharged with my eye condition, my visual impairment. So I don't have a boss as such, or haven't in a while. But
I mean, I am your boss, so you know.
Well, there's that. But I mean, in terms of being paid to do things, I've had bosses in the past, and I think I've taken time off because of diabetes, but I hid my diabetes. Nobody knew about it until just going back to the alcohol thing. I went out and had a big evening out on alcohol, and didn't do much about it because back then I wasn't doing much about diabetes. Woke up in the morning, injected my usual, it was a mixed pen, so you have long-acting and short-acting insulin. Didn't take a blood glucose check, just injected in my leg, jumped in the car, off I went to work. About halfway to work, had an enormous hypo, had to stop the car, woke up in hospital with my shirt torn open and blood all down my chest because I'd bitten my tongue. And so I had to take that day off. And my boss at the time, and the people that I worked with, it was quite a small little office job, I suppose. They didn't know. They didn't know I had diabetes. So I just didn't turn up that day. And later that day, my boss called me at home. I was at home, they discharged me. They called me at home, and I couldn't speak because I'd bitten my tongue.
Yeah.
I've had a bit of an accident. I'll call you and I'll explain when I can speak better. So, fine. A day or two later, I just had to come clean. And I just said, look, I haven't mentioned it because it's not been a big issue for me before, but I've got type 1 diabetes. And that sometimes makes my blood sugar fall. And I can have what's called a hypo, and that might make me collapse. And he kind of understood. And yeah, I've heard of that. You need to inject insulin, don't you? And well, yes, I do, but I'll be back in the office in a day or two. I'll explain how it all works to you. It's not a big deal. I apologise for missing the last couple of days, and he's fine. He's cool about it. So no judgment there. But in other jobs that I've had hypos in the night, and the following morning felt like shit because lack of sleep, because of hypo, and called in sick, but not because of diabetes. Called in sick because, I've got a vomiting bug. I don't feel well today. I might have a cold or something. I feel like I've got flu. I don't. It was a lie because I didn't want to divulge that I've got type 1 diabetes. So, have I felt judged? Kind of a long answer, that one. Have I felt judged or sensed that I've been judged because of it in the workplace? No, but that's because I hid what I had. And I was open and honest about it in the other jobs that I've had, and some of those have been in media, television. I didn't work on TV, but I worked at a TV channel. I feel I would have been far more judged. The people that I worked with there were much more judgmental about people they worked with in a nasty way in terms of their weight, as an example. And they would bitch about people behind their backs, and it just didn't make me feel comfortable to admit, I've got type 1 diabetes. And then you get the questions, but you're not overweight.
You're not, the whole, you're not overweight. We've seen you eat a piece of cake, all that kind of garbage.
Yeah, but it is, yeah. But, you get a lot of questions, and because of that, you're going to get people that judge you. And if you've been aware that the people you work with have judged others, it doesn't make you feel comfortable in coming out, I suppose, in coming out.
Well, yeah, effectively it is. It's exactly the same, obviously, as I would know from personal experience. It's exactly the same sort of process, and you have to divulge a piece of information that realistically for you is private. Nobody else manages it apart from you. And I think most diabetics are the same in terms of that. Nobody else manages that condition apart from you. Nobody has, like any sort of input on your sexuality either. It's exactly the same sort of principle, and you have to sometimes divulge that information so that you can feel like a more well-rounded person at work. But if the people that you work with are absolute massive bitches, you're never going to tell them that information because it just stokes their fire to hate another person. And it just gives them something to do during the day. They're clearly not working hard enough.
Yeah. So I wonder whether Lucy asked this question, whether she felt judged or she just sensed that she was feeling judged because she had time off because of her diabetes. Don't let it get to you, Lucy. If people are like that, they're not just going to be like that towards you about your diabetes. They're going to be like that towards lots of other people, about lots of other things. And they are twats, and there's nothing you can do about a twat. Let them be who they want to be, and you get on with your life and your job, and you do the best of your abilities, and you're going to be fine. Well, you should be fine.
Exactly. It's not, and I think a lot of the time when people make little offhand comments and stuff like that, and they're being dicks. They're not doing it because they're necessarily a really bad person. It gives you a sense of achievement to feel better than somebody else. So some people do like the idea of going, well, they've got diabetes. Well, did you know that person over there, they're a homosexual? Did you know that she's only got one real leg? You know, people feel more important when they have the upper hand on somebody else. And they absolutely don't have the upper hand. They're just coming across as an absolute twat to everybody that they're talking to. But I think we can all admit that at some point in our lives we've said something like that. You know, there are people that, quite honestly, that me and you have had private conversations about that have been less than savoury, and it's not necessarily that that person is intentionally a bad person, but the things that they do make you talk about them in such a way that makes you feel like you are better than that person, and it's not necessarily the case.
Yes, a good point. A good question, Lucy. That was a good one. Do you have any more?
I do. Skellers did ask, where is the Rebel base? You might have to answer this because this is a Star Wars reference, and the only Star Wars reference I know is It's a Trap.
There's that one, isn't there? I am your father. Is that it? I am your father? I don't... Look, just because Star Wars was like 1970s and 80s doesn't mean that I know about it.
I'm too young. I'm too youthful. I don't know it. I think I've seen them. There's people in it. I don't really know. I've no interest.
There's people in it. Chewbacca.
Yeah, there's a big dog man.
A Wookiee. It's called a Wookiee, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm just going to irritate as many people as I can.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's
the question. So, yeah. Good luck, Skellers, with Star Wars. And
we hope you find the Rebel base soon.
yes. Absolutely. Do it, Skellers. Next question. Squee asks, I think, do you know what, Harvey? I think Squee might have a little thing for you.
I think she's in love with me.
She's just one or two little subtle hints that she puts out there. Now and again, you know.
I think it could just be that I'm so lovely and feminine, you know, and she just really needs that in her life.
I think so. Yeah, there seems to be an attachment there in a stalking way, but in a nice way as well. She asks, on a scale of Squee to me, whatever that scale is, on a scale of Squee to me, how much does Harvey love me?
I love Squee to the moon and back. Despite the fact that she can be a little bit creepy sometimes, she's actually a lot of fun, and she's a great support. We've had a few little private conversations and stuff as well, when I've not been feeling great or she's not been feeling great. And she's actually a really nice person. She's just highly inappropriate, which I find delightful most of the time. I just don't always know how to respond, and I sometimes ignore her.
She is a nice person. She is. Oh yes, there was a second question. When are you going to put your baby in her?
I think the question was, when will I finally marry her and put a baby in her? And I'm not that kind of girl.
I see.
And I think what I actually replied to was a lot more censored, and I don't think I can actually say that on your podcast because I think it'll ruin it.
Blunt and to the point. That's fine. Do we have more? I asked those two questions. Have you got any more?
Yeah. Beth asked another question as well. She said, frame of mind and blood sugar levels, nothing to do with each other or intrinsically linked for you. So, in terms of, I think it's more, she's talking about like how you respond to situations and your mood and that kind of thing, in terms of where your blood sugar's at the time.
Yes. Another good question. For me, yes. I feel that my state of mind does impact my blood sugar levels in terms of if I'm tense, if I'm wound up, if I'm upset, I'm going to go high. And it kind of depends how long that's going to go on for, how long I'm feeling tense for. If I'm having an argument, let's just say I'm having a standard 5-hour stand-up shouting match with my wife, then I'm just going to spike a little because I'm used to that. But if I'm having something quite tense happen in my life and it's a new thing and I don't know, it's upset me, I'm scared or something along those lines, I can spike quite high. So I think they're linked in that way. If I'm feeling down in the dumps, if I'm feeling my mood is low, I haven't noticed anything in terms of my blood sugars changing. That doesn't seem to impact upon me blood sugar-wise. So I only notice a link in terms of if I'm tense, if I'm wound up. I think that's quite a common thing for people. My blood sugars go high. I don't know why that is, whether that's in terms of absorption of insulin at the time, your body just gets flooded with other hormones, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe somebody else could explain that.
Yeah, I don't, because mine tends to be like the opposite. I don't have a lot of stress in my life. I don't really invite anything like that. If I come across like a stressful situation where my frame of mind is going to be argumentative or quick to response and things like that, I tend to just shut that out and move away from it anyway. But if it's something that I can't control, my blood sugar tends to drop. It's not something I'm comfortable with. I don't like it. It puts me into a panic mode. So I don't know if my body just kind of goes, right, so no, like we just need to like shut this whole thing down, just like let's get rid of it. So I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but it seems like it's maybe completely the opposite to how your body works with it. The only other thing that I've noticed realistically is actually my blood sugar levels affecting my frame of mind rather than my frame of mind affecting my blood sugars. It just tends to be that my blood sugars are what they are, and my mood will change, my frame of mind will change completely based on how high or how low my blood sugar is. If my blood sugar is particularly low, so say like if it's under 5, I'll probably not want to do stuff. I get quite lazy and lethargic, and I don't know if it's just my body affecting my mood, so that I go, well, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to use any of my sugar, like in the background, like my body's telling me that. But then if my blood sugar is really high, I don't want to do anything either. I'll get argumentative. I'll pick fights for no reason. I will start those little, well, you're fucking wrong, and you're wrong because of this. And there's no reason for me to have that argument. Rather, like I could just go, okay, and just drop it, because most of the time I don't invite like arguments and things like that into my life most of the time. But if my blood sugar is maybe like above 12, I will like put a pen in your neck if you argue with me. Like I'll just get really irrationally angry. And I've had a little bit of a high blood sugar before when we've been talking on the podcast, and I start getting really like emotionally attacking towards the situation that I don't like. So like where I've been getting really overly emotional about like sex and diabetes or mental health and diabetes and things like that, I'll get like really emotionally invested in it, like it's something that is going to affect me on a very anatomical level right there and then. And it absolutely won't. But it's one of those things I cannot control, and I'll just get angry. I am like a really, really camp version of the Hulk when I've got high blood sugars. I'll just get really angry and be like, you bitch, and that's just how it works. So.
I don't know if you've noticed this, because I guess you're still quite new. You've had type 1 a few years now, but I don't think it's considered new, to be honest. When I was younger, and obviously I had type 1 then as well, I didn't manage myself well. I didn't manage my diabetes well, so I was high a lot of the time, I was mad a lot of the time as well. I was pissed off with the world a lot of the time as well. But now, in the last few years, I seem to manage things better. I've got a lower A1C, much smoother blood glucose lines according to my CGM. I feel a much calmer person. I don't seek out conflict and arguments with people on the internet and with people I live with. I'm a much quieter, calmer, subdued person than I used to be. Whether that's diabetes and that's better than it used to be, or whether that's just age.
It could just be age. You might just be settling into your body and finding that actually it's not worth all the fights and stuff. But I do think that there is some sort of correlation between having a more in-range blood sugar and having a more acceptable approach towards situations. Whether or not it is that you just get really emotional or you get angry about stuff. Because I do know there are a few people, say like on Twitter, and they'll be like, oh, my blood sugar's been high all day, all I've wanted to do is cry and I get upset at nothing. If I've got high blood sugar and say I go to the cinema and there's an emotional scene where they stop drawing one of the animals, usually I would not be bothered about it, but if my blood sugar is high, I'll get emotional, I'll nearly be crying, and that's not really what I'm like. I don't tend to cry at things, and so I do think there is like a massive correlation with that. But I think some of what you were saying was maybe just because you were maybe like a teen and a young adult, because I was very much the same at that sort of age. Obviously I was doing a lot of the bad stuff that I told you about that I wouldn't do now, because I was mad at the world, and I was mad at the world for no reason, and that was before I had diabetes. Life's a chore when you're a kid.
Of course, as a teenager, yeah. I think we've all done that as a teen. Yeah, I was certainly that way, but I feel that maybe I just took it too far. But I was that way into my 20s, certainly. Maybe in my 30s as well. I just feel in the last 5 to 8 years, maybe since the eye complications, maybe that's it as well. It's giving me that new perspective on life, that it just isn't worth the battle sometimes. It isn't worth the argument, and it's better to just let things wash over you sometimes and be calm, and then look at things maybe in the cold light of day, maybe the following day. And I was joking, by the way. I don't have 5-hour stand-up arguments with my wife.
I mean, you say that now, but you're only saying that because she might listen to this.
She will. Okay. I forgot. I think we've got one more. Somebody asked this morning, I've lost the page now. I think somebody asked this morning, what is sugar surfing? I've lost the Twitter page.
Serena, wasn't it? Was it Serena?
I think it may be, yeah. So what is sugar surfing? Do you know?
No, I don't. If I'm honest with you, I'm not equipped to answer this question. I don't. To be fair, I'm not very au fait with a lot of the terms that people use for things. It'll probably be something that I am familiar with. However, I don't really use the same thing. I don't really use terms like MDI and things like that. I tend to say injections. It's just not. I don't need to know all of the little bits of terminology. It's fine if you want to be, a diabetic specialist nurse and throw all of this information at people. But I don't necessarily think it's something that I need to know all the terminology for. If you do it, you do it. If you don't, you don't. That's fine.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really know what that is. So, do you want to shed some light onto it?
If I could. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I've heard of sugar surfing. I've heard of sugar surfing. I've heard that I feel it's the dynamic management. Dynamic. I'm just going to Google this. I feel it's a dynamic management of diabetes, where you're making minor changes. So you're keeping a constant, if not constant, but an often check on your blood sugars, your blood glucose. Then you're making minor changes to it. So you might feel you're just edging towards hypo. So instead of waiting until you're hypo, you act upon it quickly, and you feel like you're edging up. So instead of waiting until you're high, you see that you're going up high, and you take on board insulin. So you're constantly managing the
It's keeping it to that range, isn't it? Rather than obviously acting when it's hit a point, you're acting to make sure that point's not created.
Yes. So I think it's more to do with checking your flash, your CGM, or even your old school finger blood test, and acting upon that, and just checking the information, acting upon that information. I believe it may not be that. I may just be talking lots of nonsense, but you're used to that because you've already done Twitter. So I think that's as good as we can go. I don't believe we've got any more.
No, I don't have any others as of yet. Obviously, if more roll in, we can do another episode of Ask It's Medicinal, because obviously people enjoy asking questions, and it's a nice little feedback point, I think.
They do. I think that was a good podcast. I hope it was a good podcast. The last one was a little bit shitty. Times before that, I think those were peaches. Maybe the first one was a little awkward, but let us know what you think of this one. Was it any good? Do you want to ask anything else? Nobody seemed to abuse us, which was disappointing.
I was expecting some hate, I've got like a curious cat, so people can anonymously inbox questions as well. So if it's something that you're not comfortable having directed to your name, if you go onto my Twitter page, it's the pinned tweet. You can just click it and you can ask a question. So you can ask questions like that. You can send hate through there as well if you want. I don't mind. I will find out who you are. That's all fine and groovy though. People can send pretty much what they want to there. If they want it for Ask It's Medicinal, if they want it for Ask It's Medicinal, if they use the hashtag, I'll not answer it on there, and we can answer it on the podcast.
Cool, wonderful. We're having difficulty saying It's Medicinal today, and maybe we're going to have an outtakes audio file podcast at some stage in the future. Once we've got enough podcasts under the belt, we've got many fuck-ups which people might enjoy.
We've got quite a lot of private conversations that are pre-recorded as well that we can use parts of them for its medicinal purposes, because a lot of it we do discuss like diabetes, and it's just that it's not all about diabetes, and some of it's not appropriate for the internet, I would say.
Yes, I think keep those files to yourself. We'll just in years to come, we'll show our kids.
Maybe not.
Okay, I think we'll call it a day on that one. That's kind of long enough, and we will catch you all next time. I am at Diabetic Dad UK on Twitter. I had to check what I was then. I am at Diabetic Dad UK on Twitter. Doing you, Harvey.
I am diabetic_me on Twitter. I have no issue saying my tagline. Thank you.
So, thank you for listening. We'll be back next time.
Bye.